This podcast series is proudly sponsored by Schneider Electric, whose purpose is to empower all to make the most of their energy and resources, bridging progress and sustainability for all. They hope some of these insights from the following will help drive that progress.
My name is Jo Taranto, and I'm joined today by Benjamin Harris, an Operations Analyst at Sydney Water. And we're talking about fostering connection and belonging. Hi, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Benjamin, you've been at Sydney Water for about 5 years, and you're currently an Operations Analyst in the Customer Hub. And you experienced COVID lockdowns at your employer. What happened?
I think it's a similar story for a lot of people. You know, March, April 2020 came along, and then suddenly we were all working at home for the very first time. We were trying to figure out how do we do our jobs at home, in our bedrooms, on our kitchen tables, on that desk in the garage somewhere. And nowadays, we seem to have all these systems to stay in touch with people and stay connected even when we're physically at home. But at the time, we didn't have those systems yet. And so what I set up at Sydney Water was the Virtual Coffee Club. And so this was a club where you could join, and each week you'd be paired with someone new to chat to. And so it was kind of that early attempt to not be socially isolated, even when we were physically isolated.
It's such a simple idea, yet as soon as you told me about it, it kind of sparked something for me. How many people signed up initially when you flagged it with them?
When we first started it, it was pretty small. It was about 20 people. But it grew over time, partly because we had, even though it was kind of this grassroots program, it was initially word of mouth, spreading on like our company social media, Yammer. But eventually we got that top-down support as well. And so it was kind of that exponential curve as word spread and as we got that bigger promotion. So it's been sitting at around 150 people pretty consistently that whole time. Some people leave and then some people join, and it's been maintaining that level for the last 3 years.
That's the interesting thing about this is that when the COVID lockdowns stopped and people have eased back maybe to flexible work, but certainly being back in the office at least half the time, the coffee club has continued. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is we still have that need for social connection. I think that's always still at the core of it. But there are all these other benefits. We did some surveys of members of this group and of other groups. But for this particular group, what the benefits they talked about were getting to meet new people, kind of breaking out of their silo and understanding how other parts of Sydney Water work, and understanding how they fit into Sydney Water as well a bit better. Some people said that by talking to someone from an entirely separate part of the business, it sparked something, an idea was generated that they could take back to their team and do something new just from these random conversations as well.
What did the organisation think of you, one, stepping up with this idea, and I guess secondly, continuing with it and growing it?
They were very supportive. So when it very first started, I knew someone in the wellbeing team, and I said, I think this is a great wellbeing program. Are you okay if I just start doing this and run it on my own, just on the side? And he said, yes, this is a great idea. Go for it. And so I launched it. And for a year, 2 years, I ran it on my own and kept it all going. And it's now been handed over to a group of volunteers. So we've got a group called the Wellbeing Champions at Sydney Water, one of our employee networks who are really passionate about wellbeing. And so they're the people who run it now, and they've kept it going.
Do you ever have themes or particular focus for the conversations, or has that remained really just whatever people turn up and want to talk about, that's what they talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it can be anything. So you might have a chat with someone and not mention work at all. It might be talking about family or your pets or your love of Quentin Tarantino movies. But it can also be about work or about the water industry or about, challenges that you've come up against. So it can be anything, and I kind of like keeping the openness and the flexibility of it. I think the simplicity is what really helps.
Are there any rules that participants have to sort of assign, or sign up with?
I think the big one is once you get paired up with someone, reach out. I think that's sometimes the hardest part, is you get paired with someone and you get the email and then you're like, oh, I have 5 other things on my to-do list. I'll get in touch with them later. And so sometimes you might forget to have your chat.
Get stood up.
Yeah. But that's the main thing, is just leaning into it and taking part and enjoying it.
You're listening to the Australian Water Association podcast series, and I'm speaking to Benjamin Harris from Sydney Water. You mentioned that there are other employee-led networks at Sydney Water. Can you give us an idea of what some of those are, and what are the benefits of having these sorts of groups?
Yeah, we have some amazing groups, and they're almost always started by employees in a particular group. So we've got the Pride Network, which represents the LGBTQI plus community of Sydney Water and allies. We've got the Women of Water as well, who have run some amazing events. For International Women's Day, they did these design sprints to help break the gender code. We've got the First Nations Employee Network as well. And we've done some surveys to see, of the members of these groups, what kind of benefits do you get? And the themes have all been really positive. So there's huge benefits to well-being in terms of people reported having more confidence. If you feel like I'm the only Indigenous person in my team, or I'm the only gay person in my team, to find out that there's a whole network of you and you can connect with them and talk to them. And so there's that boost of pride and confidence. But there was also kind of a sense of activism, in that people wanted to make a change. People wanted to make the workplace a more inclusive environment. That's one of the reasons people joined. And so, for instance, the Pride Network is not just hosting events for that community of employees. They're also reviewing policies and organizing events to try and make Sydney Water a more inclusive place. So there's benefits to the employees, but also to the employer and the culture of that employer.
Why do you think diversity and inclusion is important for the water sector?
I think it's important in general, just because, we should be respecting and valuing all people, just as from an ethical standpoint. But from the water industry, we have huge challenges and we have huge aspirations. And in order to do that, we need to be working together, and be united by water, as they say. And to do that, we can't leave people out. We can't be exclusive. We need to be inclusive. And so by being an open table and valuing everyone, and regardless of, sex, gender, ethnicity, religion, all of those things, by allowing everyone to sit at the table and share their ideas and work together, I think we can reach those aspirations and meet those challenges.
What would you say to utilities or organisations who are looking to build connection and belonging with their employees? What can they do to really encourage or indeed amplify the work that's being done at a fairly grassroots level?
Yeah, and I think it's executive sponsorship, listening. I think is part of it. So, for instance, the work that the Pride Network does or Women of Water do, they're empowered because they have executive sponsorship, and that gives them an opportunity to talk to other leaders within the organization. It gives them potentially budget to do more. That is a really powerful thing. And it gives them that social capital to advocate for change because they've got someone who will advocate for them. So I would say executive sponsorship, to kind of, you've got the grassroots growing up from underneath, but the top-down support providing the water to let them grow.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. So you've really been at the kind of forefront of trying to foster more connection to each other and to the workplace and this sense of belonging. Do you have a clearer sense of what those two words mean now, connection and belonging?
Yeah, absolutely. I think connection is just, to me, connection is about two people. So it could be a virtual coffee conversation, for instance, is just two people on Teams or in person, and they find something to bond over. Belonging, I think, is wider. Belonging is a sense that you're accepted. It's a sense that you're valued, and that you can be yourself. So I think connection, two people, but belonging, that's a cultural change, and that is more challenging. But I think it's important work that needs to be done.
Any advice for someone like you who's thinking, I might just put my hand up and see if I can start something? Should they do it?
Do it. Absolutely, you should do it. And, they might say no, but you've got to give it a try. If you have an idea that's a good idea, that you can't let go, that's stuck in your brain, and you think, I need to do this, and it will help people, absolutely, you should do it.
I've been talking to Benjamin Harris, Operations Analyst at Sydney Water. Thank you for your not so virtual coffee chat, Benjamin.
Thank you very much for having me.